In this harsh gray world, lived alone at first glance, an ordinary guy named Natsu. He, like everyone else, loved to spend with friends, relax, dress stylishly, and dream of a happy future. But there was one feature in him. The guy was significantly different from the others. The difference was not in appearance, but in the inner worlds. Natsu truly believed that there was absolutely nothing random in the world. All the myths of the world, all the legends, all these supposedly fictional characters spoke to him, and at one moment the guy nevertheless decided to answer them, and his life was painted in completely different colors. But why exactly? Let's see. The story begins early in the morning. Natsu and his sister Yuki are in a posh 2-story house. Now they are in a hurry to get to school because they overslept their alarm clocks. Yuki got ready quickly, so she went outside and started calling her brother. This time, Natsu didn't leave through the front door, but through the garage. The fact is that the guy loves his bike very much, and if something is wrong with him, he makes every effort to repair it as soon as possible. Most likely, Natsu was not even in the shower, because the unpleasant smell of oil came from him. Despite this, Natsu still remained handsome, put his sister on his bike and drove towards the school. The house in which the guys lived was located at the foot of the farthest mountain, in a new area on the outskirts of Seoul. Buses go there very rarely. Sometimes you have to wait for hours, in which case a bicycle becomes a necessity. The guys studied at different schools, which can be found along the way. Thanks to this, Natsu was able to give his sister a ride on a bicycle. Upon arrival, they asked each other what time their classes ended so that they could go home together. From Yuki's school to Natsu's school, so you need to hurry so as not to be late for classes. Of course, alone, the guy could ride his bike much faster and more aggressively. Natsu usually rushes at such a speed that he does not notice anything around. For example, these two lovely women who are walking and talking about their topics. From such a speed, some people are simply blown away by the wind, and they fall to the ground. But this guy does not care at all. His main task is to pass the distance as much as possible and arrive on time. Some people get their phones out of surprise and start filming because they've never seen such a lot of speed on a bike. As a result, thanks to this driving style, instead of 20 minutes, the guy arrives in just 5. Upon arrival, the rubber even smokes, but the bike is ready for this. Natsu has been carefully modifying it for a long time. From the outside, the bike looked very old and shabby, but no one knew what potential was hidden under this old look. The bike could not even be tied, because anyway, no one needs it anymore. Now it's time to go to class. Natsu never liked school, especially meeting and talking with people, so he often had headphones in his ears during class. This school was secondary and had the name Bukshin. The guy sincerely believed that only scum was studying in it. He had no one to be friends with in it. The elders tormented the younger ones. The dumb girls were more worried about their makeup than their studies. The students scammed each other for money, hacked into social accounts, and then wrote nasty things. Basically, only such people surrounded Natsu at school. The guy admitted the fact that such children are specially brought together in one educational institution so that they feel normal. These children only care about themselves. They absolutely do not care about others. As soon as a guy crosses the school gate, he immediately begins to feel this atmosphere. If you remember, then Natsu spent half the night repairing his bike. Because of this, he smelled of car oil. The dregs from his school, when they smelled this smell, began to shout about it to the whole yard. The girls followed the guy with a condemning look and discussed him. On the way, quite by accident, Natsu bumped into someone's shoulder. It turned out to be a high school student who immediately began to push. Do not feed the elders with bread, just let them humiliate the younger ones, they love to do it. Then the teacher called the guy and told him to come in after dinner. His name was Maki. Despite the fact that he is a teacher, from the outside he looked like a gopnik, and behaved the same way. He was a former Special Forces officer, one of the few teachers who knows how to keep discipline under control, albeit not in the most affectionate ways. At school, the children gave him the nickname Chain Dog, and tried to bypass him. While Natsu has not yet entered the classroom, it is usually very noisy there. Everyone is joking, talking, fighting, having fun. But when the guy comes in, everyone immediately calms down. For him, this has already become a habit, but it is not yet clear why classmates have such a reaction. The guy takes his favorite back seat as usual, and when everyone gets ready to listen to the teacher, Natsu gets ready for bed. Because of the terrible nightmares that he had to film every night, he had to forget about normal sleep. These dreams are very painful. The guy may feel like he is being torn apart, or the bones are breaking one by one. It was a disease that is not known to science. Its problem is that a person does not know when he will have another attack. This state is the worst possible state. It seems to a person that his whole body is on fire. The guy constantly has to hold back the cry, shrinking from the inside, so as not to moan or shed tears. This is definitely a real dream, but in which a person can feel pain. Natsu specially takes dumbbells with him to school, because when he sleeps, he begins to squeeze his hands tightly so that he doesn't hurt himself. He needs to put something in them. Due to the fact that this force is too great, his nails begin to crack, and the dumbbell will be crushed in time, as if it were made of paper. Right in the middle of the lesson, Natsu was approached by his good friend named Michi. This guy simply could not be seen sad. He always has a bright outfit and his smile is gone, no matter what. Since the guys have known each other for a long time, Michi decided to ask if Natsu really goes to bed wherever possible, and for one thing to tell how hard it is for him to live with a broken arm. This guy was very active. He always asked a lot of questions. Natsu physically didn't have time to answer them. Then he noticed a book on the table about cellular microbiology. The guy immediately realized that it was not in the school curriculum, because he could not even read the title the first time. From this reaction, Natsu began to smile and said that it was still easy. After that, a girl approached the guys and turned to Natsu. At first glance, this offended Michi. She asked what the guy was doing the following Monday evening. This bright, sweet girl was the head girl of the class. Her name was Mami. Michi couldn't keep quiet and assumed it was a date proposal. But this is not so. In fact, we are talking about a school event. Natsu at that moment he just sat and was silent, and his friend continued to make fun of the headman. It can be seen with an unarmed eye that she does not like it. The whole school day passed in this format. It was already 6:30 in the evening, which meant that it was time to go to meet my sister. After half an hour her classes were over. Natsu got up from the table and began to get ready. Mommy again asked if Natsu could help at the school event. The boy replied that he could not, because he would not be busy. The girl tried to insist, arguing that Natsu is in this class, and you need to help at least once, but all without success. The guy did not even listen to what the headman was talking about, and just went about his business. Such an act on his part did not upset Mommy much. She did not understand why Natsu behaved this way. This lady was not one to give up quickly, so she decided to go to the end. She caught up with the guy and lightly grabbed his outerwear. After that she made a very sad face, so that the young man would definitely agree. Well, apparently, she really just won't fall behind. It seems there is no other choice but to agree that she would definitely fall behind. In the end, the guy replied that he would help and quickly went on about his business. Mommy was very grateful to him. Meanwhile, in the teacher's room, Maki was very angry because Natsu never showed up after lunch at his request. His colleague, whose name was Yasi, was one of those teachers who do not care about students and discipline, but Maki's activities have always been interesting to him. The teacher tried his best to catch Natsu in some atrocity to send him to the competition, but the kid was always clean and never got caught in anything bad. That's why today Maki wanted to invite him to participate just like that. Yasi was surprised why they want to see him at the competition. Is this guy really so selenium? Maki answered exactly, he is more than suitable. Meanwhile, the sun was setting on the street. A pleasant summer evening was coming. Natsu was walking down the street, and he felt everything hurt. His nails crumbled right before his eyes. His hair fell out. The guy's body could no longer withstand such loads. The new legs are already growing like scales over the pink flesh. By tomorrow they will be fully grown. Only one thing pleases, it will not be as bad as before. Pain has become a familiar companion in everyday life. On the way, the guy is stopped by two men and informed that their elder wants to see him. Maki told his colleague why he considers this kid a worthy candidate. Since he moved to this school, he had no conflict with anyone, and no one complained about him. He may have hidden potential. This should at least be checked. Perhaps this time, Natsu just got into a normal class, unlike the one in which he studied earlier. As it turned out, the guy is really very strong, and knows how to fight well. He was detained by 4 elders, 3 of whom were already lying on the floor, and the 4th asked for mercy. Initially, I didn't want to be anyone, but these guys were too confident in themselves and started to let go of their hands, so I had to put them in their place. While Natsu was deciding the fate of the last gopnik, Yuki was already waiting for him at the exit from the school. Her friend, whose name was Sora, ran up to her. It was a nice quiet girl with whom she studied together. She wonders why Yuki is still here instead of going home. The girl replied that she would revive her brother, who was supposed to pick her up at 6 o'clock in the evening. As it turned out, Sora had heard a lot about her friend's brother. She wondered why Natsu was transferred to another school. According to the stories, there was a terrible accident, for the sister was told that her brother was not guilty, so she did not ask for details about what happened. Yuki is currently more interested in the question why her brother is late, but she will definitely wait for him to go along. Sora asked to wait with her. Yuki didn't mind, so they stayed alone to wait for their brother. After the fight, Natsu put on his headphones again and was about to go to his sister, but he was again stopped by another crowd of men. This time they were even older. They looked like real bandits, and they carried bats. These guys also said that Natsu wants to see their boss. We'll tell the guy that he's not interested in men. The guys of course laughed, but not for long, and said to follow them and not play a tough guy, because in this situation it's definitely not possible to beat everyone alone. It was already 5 hours and 40 minutes by now, and there wasn't much time left. When the boss saw Natsu, he could not believe his eyes. Could this kid really break a stone wall with one hand? Need to check it out as soon as possible. At first, the boss ordered his subordinates to hit Natsu a couple of times so that he would not want to do anything else bad. The guys really liked the request of the boss. They already managed to promise Natsu that he definitely would not leave here whole. The men brandished their bats and wanted to start beating. This did not frighten Natsu in the least, because he was not an ordinary person. At his direction, the lingerie and the headphones began to play even more slowly. This is all because the guy's thinking accelerated, and the world around him slowed down. His body became heavy, not agile. It can be compared to when a person gets into a swamp and tries to move, but in this case it all burns to pain in the fingertips. It becomes possible to see and feel differently, wider and faster than usual, but the body still remains heavy. As soon as the opponent is at arm's length, Natsu touches him with his fingertips, and he flies away in the opposite direction. The nails, which had not yet fully healed, cracked again and began to secrete a red liquid. The second man tried to strike with a bat on the leg, but yes, her boy repelled with a careless wave of his foot, and it cracked like a balloon. Just in an instant it was torn into small pieces. Only a couple of not big movements, and serious fear is already read on the faces of the bandits. In order to completely neutralize the enemy, Natsu jabbed his finger into his Adam's apple, after which it becomes very difficult for a person to breathe. The second daredevil tried to punch the guy in the face, but this blow was easily intercepted. Natsu began to squeeze her so hard that the thug fell to his knees. In the end, the fist was simply crushed. Now, in order to recover, this man will need a very difficult operation and a long rehabilitation, and even taking this into account, he will no longer be able to use his hand as before. The boss made a big mistake. Instead of watching the fight, he admired the sunset and thought that it was not right to beat schoolchildren, but that's okay. When he finally decided to look at it, Natsu was already standing in front of him and wanted to take revenge. The boss did not even have time to buy a cigarette, and his wards were already lying on the floor. How could this happen? The boss could not believe his eyes. This guy did the impossible. He moved so fast, as if he could move at the speed of light. Without hesitation, Natsu jabbed his finger into the forehead of the boss, who flew off with such force that several of his teeth fell out. And after that he added a strong punch to the face. His jaw was shaking as hard as ever, and his eyes clouded, but this was not enough. Another strong blow right in the chest. While he was screaming in pain, teeth flew out of his mouth one after another. His bone was clearly broken, if not crushed, and his knee was dislocated. Apparently these blows were not enough since he had thought of climbing for a knife. To prevent this, Natsu stepped on his hand, after which it was practically crushed. In a moment, the guy seemed to have fallen out of reality for a few seconds. Only two things flooded his mind: this is a terrible pain, and fear overwhelming his will. Then the boy still decided to ask whether we continue the beating, or is it enough? It was very difficult for the boss to pronounce the words, but by his appearance you can understand that he will definitely have enough. While this guy is recovering a little, Natsu rushed to see how much time he had until 6 o'clock. There were still 17 to change. It took him 3 minutes to cope with this whole gang of men with weapons. Now Natsu could order this half-dead bandit what to do. He must do, otherwise it will only get worse. The guy took his mobile phone to himself and transferred all the contacts to his phone. After that, Natsu decided to see what kind of knife the bandit was carrying with him. When he opened it, he saw that the weapon was perfectly clean and very well sharpened. The bandit swore that he would not tell anyone anything, and that he would forget everything he had seen like a bad dream. In parting, the boy decided not to shave this man a lot with his own knife. Before the guy left, the abbot asked him to be a good boy and behave well from now on. After the guy went around the corner, he was finally able to relax a little and lean against the wall. In fact, he was also not slightly injured. Red liquid was emitted from his mouth and fingers and he felt severe pain. Now the time has come for the most unpleasant thing. Along with the nails, the phalanges of the fingers also broke. You need to fix the bones and return them to the joints because of what happened. The guy didn't forget much about the time. Such a load on the body causes not only terrible pain, but also breaks from the inside. You can't use such strong effects for too long. Natsu always tried to do his job and finish as quickly as possible. Especially when it comes to a fight, you need to use force to a minimum so as not to harm yourself. So time is really a very important factor in this matter. If you forget about it, then most likely there will be no next time. Meanwhile, Natsu has already left for his sister. It was necessary to urgently speed up. The sister was already tired of waiting. There was less than a minute left until 6 o'clock in the evening. In the end, the guy managed to arrive on time. Yuki was very happy to see him, and her friend too. Sora was surprised that Natsu actually picks up her sister from school every evening. The boy replied that it was part of his training. The girl could not understand why they had such an old bicycle, because their family was not poor. As a result, the guys said goodbye and went home. Sora blushed very much, because Natsu has become a very handsome young man. On the way home, my sister decided to tell what she was talking about with Sora. The girl said that from an acquaintance of Hikari, she managed to join a prestigious agency. She was very lucky, because she has relatives with good connections. Thanks to them she got a job there. Natsu held his sister and told her that she could do well too, because she was a smart girl. Sora also showed a lot of interest in Natsu, asking a lot about him, why he was transferred from high school and all that. After saying that, the brother thought, Yuki even thought for a moment that he felt bad, but everything was fine. It was already late evening, but no one had gone to bed yet. Natsu was again sitting in the basement, near the computer and minding his own business. When he had free time, he decided to remember everything he knew about Hikari. This girl is the granddaughter of the CEO of the company where her father worked before he retired. Hikari is the same age as Yuki. Before the boy entered middle school, he and his entire family lived in the house of Hikari's father. Natsu's father worked for Hikari's father for a long time and climbed the career ladder from the bottom. There are rumors that Natsu's father was the president's favorite when he first got a job. Like the guy's father, the president was an engineer who loved to invent things. He hired him as an assistant and taught him many things. The company grew rapidly and managed to enter the stock exchange. To a large extent, this was all thanks to the abilities of the Pope, which he developed for a long time. Only when it came time to appoint the next president, they were not assigned a father, but another employee who studied abroad as an MBA and was the son of the incumbent who hated Natsu's father. This was extremely unfair, considering how much Natsu's dad did for the company. Since those very events, the boy has not seen his dad again. Every time he remembers this, his heart shrinks from pain. According to the official version, he left the company due to his age. But in fact, what happened broke him. In a word, he no longer saw the point in being there. These memories became the most painful for him. He would like to forget all this. Suddenly, this strong stream of thoughts was interrupted by a phone call from an unknown number. It was already quite late, just like that no one would call at such a time. Natsu picked up the phone and asked, "Who is it?" As it turned out, it was Hikari. She was not much offended that the guy even forgot her voice. The girl invited him to her house this Saturday. Her grandfather just wanted to see him, chat with him. Due to the fact that Natsu thought for a long time, Hikari realized that he did not really want to come to visit her, so she said that this would be their last meeting if he did not want to see her again. As a result, the guy agreed to this meeting, agreed on Saturday at lunchtime. As soon as he ended the conversation, a message came in private messages from some girl named Mao. She asked to help her when she asked. Natsu doesn't mind helping, but he didn't even have a vague idea of who she was. It was a sunny morning the next day. Mommy was already sitting at her desk, thinking only about Natsu. Why did she grab him yesterday and ask for help? Suddenly, her train of thought is interrupted by a classmate. She looked very frightened and urgently wanted to say something. The girl reported that Mao, a well-known first-year honor student, almost said goodbye to her life last night. It is said that she caused herself severe harm, but she was found and taken to the hospital in time. In fact, this is a sweet, pleasant girl, which could move her to this terrible step. According to stories, she is severely bullied at school. This was done by one of the school gangs. They take money from girls and buy cigarettes with them. Mommy almost immediately recognized this gang, and who leads it. Mom told her that the family of this bandit is not very rich, and she was transferred to this school because of a very violent temper. In general, Mao lives in a rather poor family, and today her mother came to school with a sad note from her daughter. She made a big fuss there, of course. She cried a lot and blamed the school for everything. It's no secret that the deputy principal turns a blind eye to many things at the school, and tells the entire staff to also be silent so as not to spread bad rumors about this school. Most likely, the gang crushed the whole class under itself, so that they would also be silent. It's scary to even think about it, the whole class against one poor girl. It's good that the group in which Mani is not so frostbitten. When the girls discussed everything, Mommy again thought about Natsu, his desk right behind her. This guy is number one on the list of students, who is avoided by both teachers and classmates. Despite the fact that no one has ever seen how he studies, his grades are not very bad. He never gets zeros, like other hooligans. No one bothers him, and if they gossip, it's only behind his back. That's how much everyone is afraid of him. Maybe he's some kind of genius who hides his potential. Maki, as usual, was sitting in his office and notifications began to come to his phone. This was written by Natsu. He said that he would be busy until graduation, so he could not come. This made the teacher very angry, because in his opinion, he was simply looking for reasons not to go to him. Suddenly, a girl comes into the office and begins to beg the teacher that he help Mao. Maki at first did not understand at all who she was and how he could help her, because he only deals with fights at school. The girl did not even give a word to say. She put before the fact and began to complain. The student who wants to tell something was called Sakura. She was from a very famous family. The girl followed in the footsteps of her father. She is also against school violence. Maki is her biological father, but because of one guy they live separately. Of course the father could not refuse his daughter to help. Meanwhile, Natsu came to visit Hikari. From the outside the house looked chic. The guy had not been here for a very long time, although he had spent almost all of his childhood here. Unfortunately, now this place causes too many conflicting emotions, because the kid is not very comfortable here. This is the house where the whole Natsu family lived, who now lives there. On the way, the guy was met by a dog who immediately remembered him and ran to hug him. It was very nice to realize that he was not forgotten. Despite the fact that the dog has grown a lot, he has remained the same active. Then the same Hikari came out into the street. She said that we need to hurry, because grandfather was already waiting for him. The girl said that Natsu had not changed at all, and apparently, the dog had more times than her. The guy noticed that the girl remained very spoiled. Hikari said that before entering the house, be sure to wash your hands outside so as not to dirty the front door. The boy remembers how this girl infuriated him as a child. She has not changed a bit. Meanwhile, Mikio was sitting in his office and waiting for Natsu. He recalled how not long ago he talked with his son at work. They discussed how things were going in business. As it turned out, the son did not do his job very well. The guy admitted his mistake. His name was Toshiro. He held the position of CEO in their company. He had to talk with Katsu. This is Natsu's father, and as we already know, he hates him. Therefore, out of anger, he began to tell his father everything he thought about. Why do business with them any business, much less add his son here? So he asked to finish this business alone? There was a serious problem in the company. Someone stole most of their technology and used it for their own purposes. Such a mistake could not be made, but Toshiro was able to do it. This situation was not just some kind of mistake. Only Katsu can fix it, since it was he who created the core of their technology. There is no way to cope without him. Toshiro was ready to do anything if only Katsu and his son were not here. He invited the best specialists in Japan. With them, he will definitely come up with something as soon as possible. When Mikio listened to this nonsense, he realized how stupid his son is, that he still does not understand the gravity of this situation. Now he definitely realized his mistake. It was not necessary to put his son in the presidency. Just because he is a son, this is not right. Mikio also found out that his son helped his daughter get a job in the company. He confirmed this information and said that his daughter really wanted this. Remembering, I had to interrupt when Natsu entered the office. Grandfather was very happy to see him, asked how he got there, how he was doing. The guy replied that everything is fine. He also said that he would like to see each other more often. But you understand, study takes a lot of time. First of all, grandfather immediately asked for his father. Natsu rarely sees him, since he is always busy at work, so he could not tell anything about him. Then the grandfather asked about his health. The guy replied that he was feeling better. But you can't fool Mikio. He realized that the guy was still sick and he definitely didn't get better. Natsu said that at least this disease is not progressing yet, and this is already a big plus. Grandfather understood that a child was sitting in front of him who could get used to hellish pain. The guy noticed that grandfather was also unwell. After the operation, he didn't look good. His hands barely moved. Despite this, grandfather said not to worry about him. He was fine. Now Mikio decided to get to the point of the conversation. He called the guy here not just to chat. The point was that grandfather had a small request. The company is preparing to debut under Sai Entertainment. The guy was aware of this because Hikari told him about it. Between Strum, grandfather asked to look after her, so Natsu is an older brother, and in some moments, he has more opportunities. The guy checked a few things before coming here. Hikari is still the direct heiress of the company, and her father is still the president of this company. Also, the guy checked the status in the same company, and they are not doing very well. The guy was very interested in what his grandfather would say. Although they are not related to each other by blood relationship, but their relationship is similar to family. If not for one mistake of the guy in the past, it would be even better. Mikio thanked the guy for agreeing. He meant just looking after, not caring. Then the second part of the memories of the conversation with his son flooded into him. Toshiro trying to understand why his father wanted Natsu so much to look after his daughter, because he knows how much his son hates this guy's father. Their conflict began at the moment when Katsu stole a girl whom he really liked from Toshiro, and from her they had a son, Natsu, who broke his grandfather's arm in childhood. Toshiro did not understand how to continue to contact these people. Mikio replied that despite all this, he still owed him. The son could not understand that. All the money had been paid. What else they needed to give? These people are the strongest threat to business. They should not be allowed here. Grandfather replied that these people are still his saviors, despite all the unpleasant moments that have happened. During the conversation, the grandfather suggested that his grandson go out to dinner, so they did. Meanwhile at school, the gang continued to humiliate girls, take money from them, and spend it on cigarettes. One of the students to the toilet, and planned to punish her there, because she brought too little money. The girl begged to give her a chance, but this did not happen. Her head was lowered into the toilet, and during this action they threatened to bury it in the ground, for her act. After that, they took her out of the toilet, threw her on the floor and began to beat her with their feet. At the time of this she was told that she would bring $30 tomorrow and give it to the gang. If tomorrow the girl does not bring at least $10, then she will be given water from the toilet for the whole day. This gang considered their activities to be completely adequate, and they told those whom they beat that there are many shops in the city where you can earn extra money and bring them money. The girl who was lying on the floor was very angry, and called the gang member not the best words, for which they continued to beat her. The rest of the gang members asked to stop, because if this girl loses her life, then no one will bring the money. You need to know the measure in this matter. They already had one problem called Moa. The girl who mocked her is called Ichigo. She does not like when this topic is raised in front of her. It makes her nervous. The guys got the information that Maki personally took care of this matter, and another student from an influential family. They reported this to Ichigo. When the bandit was left alone, she walked along the corridor and tried to figure out how to get out of the water dry. Now she will have to sweat a lot to get rid of the evidence. But she was sure that the money would solve everything. She just had to find them. To do this, you need to find yourself a personal ATM as the guys do. You can organize your own pyramid at school to lure out more money. A little loyalty and it's in the bag. Here more than half of the students have money. Even that girl who lies near the toilet brought a lot of money. I had to come up with something of my own. Always asking the guys for help is also not an option. All these problems are only because of Sakura alone. If the hype starts because of her, then the police may show up here. So far the case has not been hushed up for a long time. Ichigo decides to call his friend, whose name is Samuel, because in his opinion no one better than him can deal with this problem. That person was her brother. Mami approached Natsu and asked for his help. You just need to take the camera from one person since the 8th grade. Is it really impossible for the headman to cope with such a simple task on her own? The girl said that this guy is a gopnik, whom even his classmates are afraid of. They also say that he is very cocky, so Mami asked to help her. She also said that Natsu can call a friend to go with him for company. At first, the guy did not understand who he was talking about, because he had no friends. But then he remembered that dude who often comes just to talk. Michi just disappeared somewhere. Always when he is needed, he is nowhere to be found. Most likely, today the guy does not shine for rest. Initially he planned to take a nap. Since the 2nd grade, the boy has been trying to become an ordinary quiet guy, but somehow he just can't do it. Why do they need this camera so much? Because you can shoot everything on the phone. The headman answered that it is our class that is responsible for video shooting, and the quality must be very good. In order to realize this, a professional camera is needed. Then the second question arises, why did these two cute girls decide that it was Natsu who could take this camera? For some reason, they were sure that it was he who could convince him. In fact, it was not even his camera, he just appropriated it for himself. Gopnik does not use it for its intended purpose and does not give it away, but to such fragile girls, it will definitely not give it away. Initially, Natsu thought that the girls were asking to just go and squeeze the camera. But it turned out that it was necessary to go along with the headman, and then act according to the situation. Mami repeated that she really counts on help, because it is very important for her and the class. Natsu was extremely reluctant to get involved in these troubles, but he hoped that his hand had already healed. The last few days it had been slightly sore, but still the guy was not sure about it yet. From a kilometer away, Natsu smells like medicines. Because of this strength, he never gets off the painkillers, so the decision was made not to interfere in anything. Initially, there was an attempt to lead an active life, and not to limit oneself in movements. Until something happened that Natsu did not expect, it is still difficult for him to get used to the features of this body, and the constant pain. It felt like he was born again. In the end, the guy asked for more information about this gopnik and agreed to go. At the meeting, this type was delighted that such a beautiful lady as Mommy visited him, but when she started talking about the camera, he was not much upset. The girl said that the gopnik kept this camera for more than 2 months, and she needed it for work and not for fun, so she affectionately asked to return it. The impudent gopnik answered her that what he found belongs only to him and no one else, and all his friends began to assent, so as not to get hit in the face later. In this case, the girl asked what he wants for her. This alignment of events interested the gopnik. He probably counted on something expensive or frank. The answer was not long in coming. This kid asked for $20,000 a day for the camera. It will be a little cheaper with an advance payment. A student ID card will be accepted as a deposit. You can bring money in the evening. The headman was very indignant that he was going to sell school property, so she said that she would tell everything to the teachers. This gopnik was not one of those who likes to be threatened, and especially girls from elementary grades. The boy clapped his hand right next to her and pressed her against the wall to explain to her who she was talking to and warn that a person could be made to answer for such words. Gopnik ordered his friends to close the doors so that no one could enter here. Then he planned to teach Mommy a lesson. He decided to make the little girl pay with her skin, so he wanted to put her in her place. Mommy was very frightened. She began to shed tears and she asked that nothing be done to her. When the gopnik began to flatter the girl, a pen flew into his head. It was a pretty strong throw, so a red liquid began to stand out from the guy's head. Then Natsu entered the room. The gopnik immediately asked who he was. The guy replied that he was a student of this school and the one who pacifies all sorts of morons. Did the perverts get to this school? The guy also apologized for being late because he urgently needed a pee. The gopnik's friends immediately recognized Natsu. They had heard his biography from the last school until his last fight. If this is the same Natsu, then he already beat 3rd graders in the 1st grade. There are rumors that he beat his teacher and was expelled because of this. Then how did it happen that the gopnik had not heard anything about him? After such an advertisement for Natsu, the gopnik immediately called him out to fight in order to solve everything on the spot like a man. The guy of course agreed. People like this instance should get what they deserve right away. This gopnik has a rather high pain threshold. Because of his unique sensitivity, he loves to fight. The one who is not afraid of pain often wins the fight. He is just perfect for the role of a gopnik, a person who loves to solve issues with his fists. His blows are really strong, as if a sledgehammer swept past the cheek. All senses instantly switch to combat mode. At first, Natsu simply dodged attacks, the enemy's fist only touching his shirt. Thus, the guy tried to exhaust him, but the gopnik decided not to limit himself to his fists, and tried to strike with his knee. The kid easily pushed him back, but he only used the momentum of the point to turn around and the next kick. This gopnik is definitely an experienced fighter. His movements are smooth and precise. He is really strong. Even in flexibility he is not far behind. Just a little more and he managed to put Natsu with his elbow in the face. But it is still slow, although quite powerful. As expected, such a drain of the battle began to quickly annoy the gopnik. Not one of his 4 blows hit the target. He had the feeling that the guy sees through all his movements in advance. Roughly speaking, it was. Natsu even had time to tease him. Gopnik accelerated, jumped up and tried to strike from the air. But things didn't go as he planned. When he was flying, Natsu punched him in the face. Even a red liquid started to come out. The bandit caught himself thinking that he was already getting a red liquid, and the boy didn't have a single scratch. He even had double vision. When it hit him in the face it was very painful as never before. Natsu hits so fast that it's impossible to dodge his blow. The bandit was so upset that he managed to hit even once that he began to ask about it openly. Gopnik could barely dodge the blows. What can we say about a successful attack? He saw such a strong opponent for the first time. When he rested, he nevertheless decided to attack again. But when he saw Natsu's strong fist immediately retreated, this guy felt fear for the first time in many years. The fist did not stop its flight. From fright, the Gopnik simply stood like a pillar and did not move at all. Goosebumps ran all over his body. It even began to seem to him that his fist had become many times larger. The bandit realized that this was the end and wanted to retreat, but Natsu easily threw him up, and the bandit flew like a balloon. The fact that a person could fly so high was incomprehensible to the mind, as well as the fact that it was done with one hand. And then with the help of a punch, the guy beat the bandit's body back into the air and shook him back and forth so much, he never landed. In this small room, only the sounds of blows that did not stop echoed. When Natsu still let the bandit fall to the ground, he asked him how much the rent of the camera would now cost. As soon as the Gopnik raised his head, the guy poked her hand back on the asphalt. Then the bandit replied that she could be taken away just like that and did not need to be returned. After that, he began to ask for mercy. The once furious bandit was trembling like a frightened kitten. Then Natsu told him to choose left eye or right eye. The world would be a much cleaner place if scum like that thug were gone. Instead of choosing, he began to swear that he would never do anything wrong in his life again. Squeezing his eyes tightly, the bandit began desperately scratching the floor with his nails. Therefore, Natsu decided to act a little differently. The bandit began to feel the cold blade on his hand, and when he slightly opened his eyes, he saw how the tip of the knife was doing something with his skin. It happened very slowly. He strongly shuddered all over, but not from pain, because he did not feel it, and did not even scream. He felt only a fierce fear of the guy, and therefore did not dare to say a word. This should definitely be enough. If you continue, then he can move his head. This blockhead will never disturb anyone again. Unfortunately, the one who does not feel pain will never be able to understand the pain of others. You can only teach them in this way. The bandit lay on the floor and was afraid even to move once again. Natsu looked around and saw that this Gopnik's friends were still here. Well, if they hadn't scattered yet, then they would also get one for their bad deeds. The first received a strong blow to the face and flew away. The other two immediately began to beg for mercy and listen to them. But Natsu did not have time for this, and the second flew after the first. He then pointedly hit two more, one after the other. He thought that the latter would still try to escape, but he did not have enough brains for this. By the way, the guy also found the camera and told Mommy that she could pick it up. Now the girl understood for sure. The rumors turned out to be true, and she believes them. After it was all over, the boy and his classmate walked back to the classroom. Even if the girl wanted to talk about what she saw, she could not convey it in words. In fact, having witnessed such a picture, Mommy should be afraid of him, but for some reason she is not at all afraid. The girl said that that's all for now, but in the future she wants to count on the guy's help. Apparently she still liked it. After some time, the guys were already sitting in a cafe and having a good time. Mommy said that he wanted to treat the guy to help him, and they went to the institution. I wonder whether the headman has always been so kind or just today. The girl apologized that she just stood there and did not help in any way in the fight. It must have been hard for Natsu to be alone. From the outside, Mommy looks like she is very nervous. The guy does not regret anything. This bandit raised his hand to such a beautiful girl, so he got what he deserved. The one who calls himself a man would never do that. Natsu saw enough of violent action movies as a child, but in real life he gets everything much tougher and worse than in the movies. The boy tried his best not to use force, but this girl's frail body must have suffered much more than Natsu. So the boy decided to put his hand on the girl's shoulder to heal her. Mommy was a little scared, but the guy said to sit still and not move. He won't do anything. The back suddenly becomes so warm. A powerful wave of energy passed through it. This body spread from the neck to the face as if the girl had taken some medicine. Before that, The body was wildly ill and shaking, but now it has become much better. The girl said that she did not feel much difference, but in fact, I really got better. I need to thank him for that. Mommy asked for the second time what Natsu wants to eat. The guy was surprised and asked if she really wants to pay for dinner. The girl said that she just wants to thank me. I am a middle-class family. My father is generally an orphan. This is a very sad story. The next day, Natsu's mother, whose name is Momo, taught at the university. She always called the students who did not listen to her and asked them to retell what she had just said. And as a rule, the students agreed on something completely different. She was a straightforward teacher. If the student was not interested, then she asked him to leave the lesson right now and not waste her and her time. She was very offended when such situations occur, because almost all of the students sitting here promised to start studying and trying. After the end of the lesson, Natsu called his mother, asked how she was doing. She also asked how he was doing in response. The guy replied that everything was fine. He was no longer small and you shouldn't worry about him. The guy also asked for more pocket money, because he didn't have enough for his needs. Momo thought that my son broke something again and it needs to be paid, but he said that he didn't break anything. The guy also wanted to talk about dad, but mom asked don't talk about it now. Adults will take care of their problems. During the conversation, Natsu was sitting with his sister in the library. She said that she had received information that her brother would often visit them next week. She was interested to know the reason. The guy replied that this was at the request of his grandfather. Yuki was worried about her brother because he was not fully cured yet, but at least he got better. The guy realized that his sister was very worried about him, so he decided to pat her on the head. Still, having a caring sister is very nice. Then help solve an equation she's been sitting on for a very long time. This task with an asterisk. Natsu is the only one she knows who can quickly solve such a task, except for her dad, of course. When they sat down to do their homework together, they solved all the tasks using several methods. Among the whole family, the sister was the most stupid. And my mother was very strict. She always said, "Daughter, you must study hard," despite the fact that her direction is the humanities. Like the philosophy of the history of economics, her sister is still under constant pressure. Why can't you just be ordinary people? Meanwhile at school, a day has passed since another teacher took over the post of leader from the 2nd to 5th grades. But her group passed without telling her anything. They all answered as if by the template, diligently avoiding slippery topics. According to other teachers, these classes are the most normal. They are ordinary children who study for their own pleasure without any conflicts. But there are too many bullies in this school. In many ways, she suspects Natsu. In her opinion, he is definitely not clean. This teacher's name is Shizuka. Her goal was to find out exactly. She feels like a beacon of hope in this school. Meanwhile, the guy was lying on some hill, or was being killed by the sky. He was overwhelmed with strange sensations. Only a few days have passed, and he feels surprisingly well. For the first time, he does not bend over from pain after a fight. In general, he wants to miss classes. But it's better not to do this. His father will understand, and his mother will definitely kick him out of the house. Natsu thought about it, and remembered some fragments from his childhood. When he was still a small child, for the first time he felt these pains. His mother took him to all hospitals. Many promised to cure him, but in the end nothing worked out for them. At that moment even painkillers stopped helping. Once it happened that his father and mother were not around. During the next attack, the president of the company saw the state of the guy, and ordered Natsu to be urgently hospitalized. When he came to, who heard how he and his father screamed loudly at each other. Doctors admitted that they see such symptoms for the first time. They need a more detailed examination. Until they know how to help him, the cells of the guy's body are constantly being destroyed. Doctors predicted that Natsu at this rate might not last even a year. It was an unknown disease, and the doctors could not do anything about it. When the guy was hospitalized, his parents loudly cursed with the doctor. The boy was sick of it. Even then he began to write off hatred for his parents. Natsu thought that all this happened because of him. Grandfather then got very angry with his father and mother, and for some time they did not communicate at all. So suddenly the headman rose to the guy. She saw that he was crying, and asked what happened. It scared her very much. Natsu, of course, replied that he was not really crying, but that it was just watery eyes. The girl asked why the guy is lying here alone, although it was a stupid question because he is a loner in life. Mommy was just walking and met him by chance. Natsu told her to go for a walk and not interfere with him, because he is busy. The girl insisted that the guy talk to her, otherwise she will spread rumors that she caught him crying on the roof of the school. Meanwhile, Maki was in full swing interrogating students who study with Mao, but there was only one problem. They all said that they did not know anything. Why did he break down and say, "I know you're being bullied, and it will continue. If you continue to remain silent, why not just try to tell the truth?" The girl thought about it, and was ready to say something. The teacher interrupted her to look so that she would not worry. He would keep all her words a secret, he just needs to trust. The girl warned immediately she did not know all the details, but something is known for sure. Because of Ichigo, now massively call all the victims and collect compromising evidence on her. At the moment she is very nervous, because any moment I can go to jail. Now her goal is to find out who passed information about her. So far she has managed to close the director's mouth. He will not say anything, while she has been busy. But Maki is a completely different matter. She will not go against her principles. Something was urgently needed, otherwise this teacher would still achieve his goal. So the girl called her brother and asked if he managed to solve something. The guy replied that he did nothing, and thought that everything was fine. But since the girl has problems with the police in her nature, he will not help, for a fee, which he will call after the work is done. Brother liked that. Ichigo quickly agreed, and said that everything will be done in the evening. Also the girl sent a photo of Maki and said that this is a teacher from her school. She needs full information about him as soon as possible. Samuel said that he would get everything. After the conversation, Ichigo decided to go cook one boy from the 8th grade. Her friend said that he was not at school today, and he was not there yesterday either. I wonder why he didn't come. What happened to him that he didn't even report to Ichigo? He had never been so ignorant of something obviously happened. Well, if it's not there, then you need to tie someone else. Meanwhile, Natsu was at home. In his basement there was some kind of secret room, which he came to when he felt bad. Today his head hurt like never before. This pain is different from usual. It symbolizes the beginning of an attack. You need to urgently go into the capsule. In the basement, the guy has a mini laboratory equipment. You just need to lie down and press the switch to close the lid, after which the device starts to rotate with the guy's body. The person is tightly bandaged so that he cannot move, just like the mummy. Given the capsule is filled with foam, it has good sound insulation, and also softens convulsions. With a bound body, it is easier to survive the most acute attack. A tight bandage helps out a lot. But the main blow is taken by the steel body of the capsule. If not for him, then the guy smashed everything here a long time ago. While the capsule is fulfilling its purpose, Natsu screams so loudly that it can scare all the neighbors in the area. So the screams are also blocked by this capsule. These moments are real hell. The guy can't even turn off. Dad and mom are never around at such moments, although they are very needed. Natsu was always wondering where he got this power. But the answer, it was just torment from time to time. He wanted to know why he got it, but no one gave an answer. The head is spinning so much that now it can vomit, as if the world outside does not exist. He really wants an assistant from pain, but not a single muscle simply obeys. The guy looks stupidly down at one point, then he tries to raise his head and look at the wall opposite him. It's exactly 10 meters from here. The guy obviously has texture and paint on the wall. How they make Ryazenka. Every piece of remaining paint. The smallest insects that climb inside there. You can even see what antennae of this insect. When the body begins to return to normal again, Natsu can sit in focus, as if through a lens with a blurry edge and a clear center. Why strange lines similar to the northern lights begin to appear around. They move randomly, add up into bizarre waves. Interestingly, is it an infrared ray, or ultraviolet? It seems with every attack, vision becomes superhuman. The guy directly feels how he becomes a monster. Why do the ears wake up, which receive information at all volumes at once? the nervous system expands, analyzes 1,000 sounds. Numerous sounds correspond to the eardrum, and pain begins to be felt again, as if the ears and head were pierced from the sky with a red-hot nail. This is one of the most disgusting feelings. However, even during the pain from all these sounds and nowhere to go, a person receives all sound frequencies at once. They are approximately 20 times more audible to the human ear. High, low, indescribable, the kind that can hardly be called sounds at all. This is the third attack, and no one can say how many more will be ahead. You need to get used to it somehow, and learn how to control this flow. It is already getting easier, but sensitive vision, hearing, touch, charm, as if increased 4 times. This is definitely beyond the control of an ordinary person. The body has become too sensitive to everything. Depending on how the guy uses it, the power of all feelings can increase as much as several hundred times. Now the guy feels a tremor, and it's not because of an attack. Who is it really? Can you call him a man? Even the parents don't know the answer to this question, and it doesn't make any sense to go to the hospital. No one knows anything there either. It happened for the first time in the 5th grade of elementary school, and the guy experienced the second attack in the 2nd grade of high school. Then he was taken to the hospital, told about an incurable disease. However, no one told him exactly what it was. Then the boy was terrified. It was unbearable pain at a young age. He did not want to lose his life. He really wanted to live. For the first time, the boy had to think about the possible end of life. After that, Natsu tried his best to find a way to survive. He began studying organic chemistry, biochemistry, cell medicine, life sciences, pharmacology, and physiology, and was obsessed with genetics. The guy grabbed any science as a chance, because he needed no clinical data, began to study programming in order to hack the X-Files vault, in order only to find a miracle cure that could cure him. Even the foreign clinical data that the guys got was of little use. Unfortunately, nowhere similar cases were recorded. At first it seemed to him that his cells were simply aging rapidly, but it was clearly not aging, because the destroyed flesh immediately regenerated. His cells seemed to be different from human ones. Judging by his research, they divide at a tremendous rate like supercells. A study about them, Natsu first discovered the base of the US military hospital. The guy saw this article. After that, someone immediately deleted it from the storage. At that moment he panicked. If someone deletes data, then something similar has already been encountered in this world. But what happened to the patient? He was able to recover or not? Suddenly the guy realized why he so diligently avoided hospitalization and examinations. It was not because of the indifference or lack of responsibility of the parents. The reason was quite different. He was just afraid of what he was turning into. Is he really a monster? Shortness of breath begins again. Reality pecks and turns into other colors. Everything has become too distinct, even what is far away. It is very important not to go crazy at such moments. Now it seems the guy understood something. His mind was clear, and he realized a lot. Despite the unbearable pain tormenting his brain, he thought like never before. Mom tried to explain this to Natsu. At that time he believed her words. But the expression on her face at that moment betrayed her with her head. Because of the island of charm, the guy realized one thing: the smell of rotting cells. This is what he felt. Aging and cell regeneration occur inside him at the same time. Now you cannot be afraid that you will have to suffer again for several days in a row. You can no longer surprise him with pain. Why did the mother call the guy? It seemed that he was ill. It seems to be the flu. His whole body aches. He feels as if he will soon die. Mom asked when it started, and reminded him what it is to be absent without a good reason. When it gets better, be sure to call her. The guy said that yesterday he lay all day and woke up just now, and he apologized for what happened. After that, the mother asked if her son would be able to go to school tomorrow. He replied that he would look at the state, and while there would be nothing to promise, we might go to the hospital. In general, she said to be in touch with her, because I keep calling and saying that her son is absent without a good reason. The main thing is not to forget to take a certificate from the hospital. The guy was surprised that his mother is so kind. Usually she screams and sends him to school under any circumstances. You'll have to break into the hospital again to sign yourself in. At one point, the guy felt that something was starting again. It didn't look like an attack, something else. An attack usually starts with a headache, and this is the finish line of his transformation. At that time, at the end of the attack, there were gagging to draw the guy for the first time. As if his cells rebelled at once, the guy began to choke. All the stomach acid began to come out. It was a little unexpected. He literally turns out. The intestines are constantly contracting and relaxing. The multiplication of horizontal feces will now come out. The guy creates but can't do anything. He had to do his best to control himself. All the senses went beyond the normal. The nervous system was simply overloaded. It is urgent to regain control before it is too late, otherwise the process will become irreversible. The task is to return the limiters to the sense organs and balance the neural signals. It seems the guy did not take into account the moment that the body is simply not ready for such a load. The cells continue to be updated again and again. Only 1 hour has passed. It seems that for 10 years, in the end, the guy withstood. It seems that adaptation to the increased perception of all the senses has been successfully completed. He almost lost his life while adapting. Having gone through such horror, already no deprivation of life is scary. Though full recovery seems to take a whole lot of time, there was a feeling of weakness, eating. The nervous system was definitely in order. The worst thing is that you can't even rest after that. And you can't sleep either. You need to move as much as possible to strengthen your muscles and nervous system. It's like softening clay and sculpting a jug out of it. Depending on how long the soft time for the final solidification varies greatly, even the subdued light of the device continues to dazzle. It's already the next morning. It's the 4th day of the pass. The teachers will definitely punish Natsu. Natsu couldn't find his phone. Every slightest movement hurts his joints. All his hair and dandruff also falls out. It seems some of them even sat. In addition to all, this guy is very thirsty. A message from his mother came to the phone. She asked him to wake up as soon as possible, and then the guy tried to reach his chair. He walked only some 5 meters, and interrupting his breathing as if he was running sprint, for which he had all this suffering. It was even hard to walk. Due to memory problems, the guy began to doubt if this was the 3rd day or the 4th. It was the most terrible attack of all. The guy could not even tell for sure whether he was in reality or not. No medicine looked to explain it all. Then what is it? Day 5 times 6 o'clock in the morning, the guy fell asleep in a bath with a solution. Its composition includes a huge amount of useful trace elements. It also temporarily strengthens the skin and eliminates the unpleasant odor of decayed flesh. To the legs will give a toned body without excess skin residue. This is how Natsu adapted to grooming himself. A bit of a non-native layer of skin is felt, but this is normal. The coating seems to be imperceptible. The only problem is that the skin immediately exfoliates if you rub it hard, and if you present it, the skin is torn, and an unpleasant smell comes from it. The guy's voice seemed to be normal. It remains only to process chutak so that the skin becomes even stronger. Natsu invented household chemicals for his needs, including a solution that eliminates unpleasant odors. The interval between bailiffs is quite long. You are completely distracted with new sensations after about 6 months. I wonder how long it will take this time. Given the volume of changes, the recovery period may take longer. You have to apply this thing 3 times a day, and what remains to be done? For the whole class, I don't want to stink until the body obeys. We must at least do something. You need to figure out how to stabilize the skin aging system. The guy has been working on this for a long time, but without the help of a specialist, he is not doing well. In any case, there is nowhere to rush. There is time to think. For now it's even painful for a guy to clench his teeth, but someday he will definitely get out of this hell, and be sure to get what he wants, namely my body is my temple, and will be able to bring it to perfection. For this you need to do 2 things. The first is to fully study his physiology. 2, to correct all the side effects based on the knowledge gained. For this the guy needs the one who created the human body. The creator of all things will be the first goal, no more, no less. The guy really wants to know what's going on with him. He feels that the answer is connected with something supernatural.